Well, actually, starting off, everything is like basically due to my father. I was the firstborn son, and he had this whole thing about me playing the bass, and I really wasn't really interested in playing the bass. I was interested in a couple of other things, astronomy and things like that, and aeronautical engineering. But my father had this thing about me playing the bass, and one day I came home and there was a bass, Ampeg baby bass, in the house. And I said, well, who's going to play that? He said, who do you think? So, of course, it was me. So all thanks to my father and the other father as well. But basically, I started out with Ampeg baby bass, and then from there, started out actually playing Latin music. From the time I was probably about 12, my first professional gig was about 12 years old. I was playing with people like one of the great Panamanian singers, a guy named Mr. Lealco, and a lot of great Panamanian musicians and musicians from guys like Caco, Patato, several other cats, Jose Manuel Jr., Monguito Santa Maria, a lot of the greats in Latin music at the time. At about 15 and a half, I was working with a group, Caco. Caco was one of the great timbale players. And I was working with him and Patato Valdez. They had a sextet comprised of Eddie Martinez on piano, Ray Maldonado on trumpet, Bobby Brown sometimes on tenor sax, or if not Bobby Brown, Pat Patrick played baritone and tenor. And after Pat Patrick, there was Pat Patrick, there was Manny Durang, who unfortunately just passed away. Great trumpet player. He was the first guy I'd ever seen with a horn like Dizzy's. I actually met him when I was much younger at a club in Brooklyn called the Casa Borinque, which was in Brownsville on Pitkin Avenue. This many years back. But anyway, we had this sextet. We used to play every week. I think it was every Friday and Saturday night up at this club in the Bronx on 180-something Street. And one night, Pat Patrick came to me and said, listen, Sun Ra's looking for a bassist. I had no idea who Sun Ra was. So he said, it'll be a good thing for you. There's some great musicians in the band. You're going to go to Europe. So I said, Europe? I knew about Europe. I didn't know about Sun. So that was like an exciting thing for me to check out. So I said, okay, great, you know. About a week later, of course I accepted the gig. About a week later on the same gig, Ray Maldonado comes to me and says, listen, Alex, Dizzy's looking for a bass player. So I told him about you. Would you be interested? And I said, of course, yeah. I mean, you know. In actuality, I really didn't have an idea of the level of the stature that Dizzy was. I was very, very young, and I was into a bunch of other things. So I went home and told my father, and my father totally freaked out. Let's go. another part of my career. And from there, I went on to play with cats like Clark Terry and Woody Shaw and Freddie Hubbard and McCoy Tyner, and I mean, the list kind of goes on. I've been very, very blessed to work with so many great people. So they were like my teachers as well, playing with cats like Dizzy. So I worked with Dizzy from the time I was 16. I actually, 16 and a half, 16 and a half, yeah, because I went with Sun Ra, as I explained to you about that whole thing with the club. When Pat Patrick asked me, and that was the summertime coming up, so that was a break of school. So I went to Europe with Sun Ra for about 3 months, or 2.5 months, stayed there a little bit extra. And he had people like John Gilmore, Marshall Allen, Pat Patrick, Lex Humphreys. I mean, there were a lot of incredibly great musicians in the band. So that was a whole other, that was like a whole other university for me, a whole other school. And of course, Sun Ra, which once you play with him, there's no place you can't go. And then the next person, when Dizzy Gillespie, that was a whole other university, that was a whole other school. But after playing with cats like that, it gives you, I'm trying to find the right words, it's just an amazing experience and adventure to go on. One of the greatest musicians, I think, one of the greats that I've had the opportunity to work with and continually work with is Randy Weston. Playing with Randy is a whole different experience, and it's actually, he gives you the whole cultural thing about Africa, of the music of Africa, where the music actually comes from, the music that we're all playing. Before all of that, I was working with, after I'd finished working with McCoy Freddie, and I went to the fusion scene, I was working with people like Billy Cobham, Lenny White. From there, I went with Harry Belafonte. And then I worked with the Manhattan Transfer for about at least something like, I think, 16 years. From 1979 to about 91, I went back about 94 till about 97, something like that, I believe. So 98, somewhere around there. That was a great group to work with, a great bunch of people. I had a good time. Music was fabulous. And then after I left that, I went back and started working with Randy, which has been really a great experience, and I love working with Randy. Totally different. And I guess that's it for now. I mean, I'm working with my own group. I have a bunch of great cats in the group. Victor Jones, Chris Hunter, Benito Gonzalez, who's a new addition to the group right now. And sometimes one of the great percussionists, Neil Clark, works with me as well. I've been also working with a lot of other great musicians like Bill Jacobs and Tacho Ramirez and a bunch of other cats. I'm really thankful to be working with. These are a great bunch of musicians. So that's the story. The story is actually much longer than that, but we're trying to make this a little short thing here. So we don't want to get into too many super details about things. So that's but that's it.